You know, height is just, an illusion. It's good.
I'm not short. I'm fun size.
Fun size. There you go, like a little piece of chocolate.
Yes. Yeah.
So hi, I'm PH.
And I am Song.
And we are affiliated with MFan in some really cool ways. We've been doing food work in the community for some time.
Yeah, for a few years, and we're very passionate about what we do, and we like to share it with everyone.
Yes, and so we had a few workshops a few weeks ago, one about power mapping and then another one about relationship building. And we thought, how cool would it be to have to record a recap and also have a conversation about follow through, because that was actually one of the things that we did not get a chance to talk about at the end of the last session. And follow through within community work and organizing is sometimes a challenge.
Yes.
And so I was very vulnerable at the end of the last workshop, saying that I am not necessarily the best at follow through. And Song was like, me too. And we were like, well, let's just have a conversation and be vulnerable, and then share this with those that came to the workshop, as well as whoever else finds this. Because we have done work in food, we thought that we will cook together and have a conversation. So we have our tea and our unicorn tea mugs. And we're going to, drink. The tea actually came from Red Wing, Minnesota. That's a Red Wing. Red Lake. My bad. No, indigenous tribe in Red Lake, Minnesota. But we're going to make some snacks. So being true fashion, sharing some food tips as we talk about follow through and food system work. So we're gonna make popcorn, because I really love popcorn. Mm-hmm. Do you make popcorn from scratch?
I have tried once when I was a kid, and then I burnt the pot, so...
Okay, well, this is a really easy way of making popcorn from scratch. I usually like to have coconut oil as a base, but I'm running low on my coconut oil. It does actually just add a really nice flavor. But you also can use veggie oil. So you're going to have your pot, whatever size pot. You're going to turn it on, and we're going to heat the oil at the same time. So you kind of want to just coat the base of the pot with oil. And we're going to let it heat up. So I'll probably put just kind of coat the bottom, add a little bit more. We're going to let that heat and put my lid on and get the seeds. So, Song.
Yes. PH.
What do you love about what you do in community?
I love connecting with people to come up with solutions together. That's what I enjoy the most.
Because you're like a public health person, right?
So, I'm a registered dietitian, and I actually enjoy working in the community, and decided to do the community route with nutrition just because I think food is such an integral part of all of our lives, not just our physical health, which there's so much emphasis on, preventing disease, and that's very important, and being healthy for your body. But I also think food is integrated in our spiritual health, in our mental health, our social health. Definitely, this is why we're doing this, because this is a great way for us to connect.
Yeah.
And we're using food as a means of doing that.
Yeah.
So that's why I really enjoy the community aspect of working through food. Yeah. What about you, PH?
What do I love most about doing community work?
Yes.
Besides eating, because whenever there's like a meeting, there should be food. Because it just creates space for folks to, relax and just be themselves. I really love the conversations that happen. I really love creating spaces for conversations to happen and for folks to be their most authentic self. Um, and there's just something really wonderful about creating space for possibilities and also for words to just kind of live without there being like a script. I feel as if sometimes the most genius things that comes out of conversations wouldn't happen if it was scripted.
Yes.
You know?
Because sometimes it's best to just say what's on your mind when it comes out instead of trying to reformulate it into something, then it changes the meaning and the feeling of it.
Yeah, and so I really do use that when it comes to, like I use that model when it comes to cooking. Like I don't like following recipes. I'm not a recipe person. I'm a feelings person, and I'm an artist and a creative person like that. So I'm just like whatever my heart feels. And so I think honestly that too has impacted my follow through because I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great, and I'm gonna commit to all these different things, and then I'm like, I just committed to all these things, and I'm having a hard time just even doing one of them. And so, like, I wish that I can kind of keep my, like, have space in my head to, like, think about what I'm going to need to commit to before actually committing. Because sometimes I get myself in hot water, like Grandma calls it. Hot water.
I do the same, too. Like, I get so eager about everything and connecting with people that I can overcommit. Or else I feel like sometimes I commit out of like necessity versus like, oh, if no one does it, then it won't get done.
That's true.
And so, and I feel like the work that we do, it's so out of necessity, like it's so important, but then also practicing self-care and follow through is, if we don't follow through, we can't get the work done either.
Right.
So
right.
That balance.
When you said that about committing things out of necessity and out of like there not being enough, sometimes there's not enough people in the space. Some people are like, I don't really feel comfortable because I'm new at this. And so, but also at the same time, like in order for you to get comfortable, you have to do. And have space to do. One thing that I remember like growing up and hearing like it's okay to do things in pairs. You know, like to work in collaboration and to like have a buddy. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, we can do this video together because then we can actually get it done.
That's true.
But also like I feel as if when it comes to committee work and doing things in community, I feel as if like as adults, like I often feel the pressure of having to do it all by myself and not to reach out and do it in community and to do it in partnership. But I do realize that when I'm able to accomplish a task with another person, it actually gets done.
Yeah.
And then I'm enjoying it a lot more because I don't like to work alone. Like because I'm like such a communal person. Yeah. Does that make sense?
And I think it's just like when you do it with someone, there's just accountability.
Yes.
And so like for me, I like to have meetings face to face and frequently to check in just because it keeps me accountable, because if I don't have to meet with them for a long time, then it's like, it's not like urgent yet. And so when I set up follow-up meetings, it makes me have to get it done before the next meeting, or else it reflects poorly on me and the other person's relying on me to get my piece of it done. Yeah.
I remember, like, I know, like, sometimes in being in community and engagement with folks that are not being paid to do the work, they're like, I don't want to go to another meeting. Yeah. Because it's taxing on their body, on their emotions, on, like, everything else that they're having to do is not just, like, they have the opportunity of just saying, I'm not going to feed my kids right now because I'm going to go to this meeting. People are like, well, I just rather just get the work done. And so I think sometimes, too, I do notice that some folks are more hesitant of saying, yes, I'm going to commit to this task, because they're like, they too are also trying to navigate balancing all of their responsibilities in life. But also they truly do have a desire. And so I feel, so like, I'm curious as like a leader, how have you been able to like create space for folks in community that are not being paid to do the work to actually commit to doing a task, and seeing it done. So like what's been that follow up, or how have you been able to create space for increased success when it comes to follow through, knowing that success is dictated by the person?
Yeah, so for me...
Oh, sorry, and before you answer that, I just want to say I added popcorn to the pot. And the same thing as the layer, I just layered it with, I just layered the popcorn seeds here. You can get
and some salt.
and some salt, because like as salt, fat, acid, that show, talk about like salting at different stages. It really does work. And I got these seeds at Walmart. For like less than $2, which I was actually really happy about, and they were non-GMO, which I was actually really surprised about. But I just put it into another container, and I put my lid on. And I'm gonna keep the most important thing is to keep the lid on while they heat, and it's on like medium heat of a gas stove, because when you start to hear the pop, then you're going to start shaking and let it fully pop. So, but that's enough of our cooking.
Like, Peach is doing all the cooking. I'm just standing here like, yeah, what she's doing.
For now.
If I was in charge, it might burn, so let's just...
I should make you do this. Talk about follow through.
I will follow through with the eating part.
Okay.
I can do that. Yeah. So back to your question about supporting community members. I think as someone who is very privileged to be paid to do the work that I do and like to attend these meetings and to contribute to these issues and these causes, like I'm very privileged to do that, to have that opportunity. So I think supporting community. So one thing I learned when I was a program manager was sometimes like I'm a very, here's your task, here's your goal, go do it, and some people need more support than that. So I will like set up like, hey, let's spend this time instead of just checking in, let's work on this together.
Co-working.
Or like, let's brainstorm this together, because if I just leave it to you, it might be too overwhelming. Like, it's not that you can't complete the task. Like, I trust that you can. That's why I'm giving you this task, or I know it will challenge you. But sometimes it is just overwhelming, so we just need to break it down. And everyone has a different work style. Some people can just take it and make it whatever. Some people just need a little support and a little guidance. And so that I found has been helpful. So that I think two brains are just always better than one.
And that's so true.
So
that's so true.
Yeah.
And what about with like volunteers or folks in the community that are not being paid? So like, if they only have limited time.
So for sure, like always advocating if they're attending an event or something, advocating for them to get incentives for coming.
Yes.
And one thing I know too, doing like programmatic work and like having done focus groups, is like, how do we provide food? Always food.
Yes.
How do we provide incentives if we can't, like childcare, transportation? Those are, I think, the biggest barriers that limit people from coming. And I know it's not always easy to, but I think it's always good to ask if we can, because oftentimes something can come through.
Right.
Even if it's just a little.
Right, because like it's pretty much like a non-negotiable in my book, is that like you need to have childcare, you need to have food, you need to have a space that is easy access. You need to make sure that not only accessible for folks, with various abilities, as well. Thinking about the time of the day in which the meeting is happening, as well as the co-working space is happening. Do people have access to computers?
Yes.
So that's another reason why that co-working is often really helpful, is because then you're able to like get it done without assuming that everyone has access to materials and equipment in order to do the work. So yeah, I totally hear you on that.
And like, I think it's also interesting or important to, in these spaces, to give them the space to contribute when they are comfortable or when they would like to contribute. So like, I've been to meetings where, like I've talked to community members and they're like, oh, I don't know if I should be here. I don't have credentials. And I always remind them, it's like, you are a resident that lives in this area and you're affected by this, you are the most important person here.
Yeah.
Because you have lived experience. And that in itself is a valid reason. That is your credential.
Yeah.
And that's all you need, you know?
Yeah.
And so just like being sure to give space to people who may not feel like they have these credentials or may not know exactly how everything works, giving them the space and time to absorb it all, because it can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Something that I really appreciate about MFAN is that that they've created many tangible ways in which for folks not to feel overburdened with the things that they take on, and creating spaces where there's a lot of, like, I will say, like, with the quarterly meetings, like having there be an opportunity for, like, the breakout sessions or the breakout the subcommittees to meet and have conversations, and so some of those individuals are able to do the work right then and there.
Yeah. And I think even for me, like, one thing I'm still like having to work on is like in a organization world and like corporate world and, like, you know, business world, we're very like email and electronic calendar people.
Yeah, we are.
And so I have to be better at connecting with people in person and actually calling them instead of just sending emails. And so that's something that I need to follow through on, and to practice as well.
Knowing your communication style is really important, and I'm an in-person person. Like, meet me in person. Let's do something together so I can see your face, even if it's just like FaceTime. So I literally just got off of a call with a person who's in Dallas, who's flying back, and I was just like, and she was like, "Hey, we just meet via FaceTime," and I'm like, "Yes." And so it was actually on Instagram. Did you know that you can make phone calls on Instagram? But it was just like seeing her face.
Yeah.
I felt so much connected, and I was able just to like breathe and be my authentic self. And so I love that.
Yeah.
So meeting in person. Yeah. Are you a butter person?
I am. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you've mentioned before that you've done walking meetings. I have not done that yet.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. I actually just helped yesterday.
Oh, yesterday was a good day to go.
It was gorgeous
Yeah.
out. So, it was gorgeous. So basically, pause. Hey, with the popcorn, you also want to smell it too. Like, so if it smells like it's starting to burn, then you need to stop the heat, and just turn it off and keep the lid on so it can just continue to pop. I added way too many seeds to it this time. I was like excited, but that's okay. So just let it rest. And so then one easy way of doing butter, is just to slice it and put it on top of the corns, and then shut the lid, and then let it warm up, and then shake it, and then butter gets all over everything. And the great thing about it too is that you don't necessarily need to over salt it, because you salted the oil and it got out in the seeds. So as it popped, a lot of the seeds got salted at the same time. How amazing is that?
That is amazing.
I added a lot of butter because I like butter. Okay. So walking meetings, yes. I love walking meetings. One, because like I sometimes you don't really realize how much you sit.
Oh yeah.
And then for me, because I love doing things, like it triggers other things in my mind. And so, basically so it's just like a one-on-one, but it's just walking. And so we just walked around the neighborhood. I was meeting with someone in the park board, in the neighborhood association, and we met at a certain time. And make sure you know exactly where you're going to meet, because I thought that we're meeting somewhere else, but it was, but it was easy. It happens to the best of us. But we literally just walked. And so like, I really love to sometimes just really take my time walking and slow the heck down. And so we just walked. And then we were like, oh, you want to sit here? And we sat, and we had more conversation, and we paid attention to time, and then we walked back to our meet point. But it was just a really great way of getting outside of a building, and to experience the outdoors. It made sense because we were talking about like being in neighborhood, and neighborhood work. And so like we would walk around in the neighborhood. We're just able to like connect more with the neighborhood itself and my neighborhood. And I felt a little bit more relaxed. Yeah, and I was meeting with a person of color, and they totally just was like, yeah, let's just do something different. And I really appreciate it too, because different communities, different cultures think about meetings and think about building community and having conversations very differently, right? And so like even just like now, us having a conversation while we're cooking a meal or cooking snacks and recording it, like this is something that I think that is happening a lot more within our generation, because it just makes sense. It just because it creates space for other things to happen.
Like it's not so traditional anymore, and it doesn't have to be a traditional way of following up or following through.
Exactly. So being able to think about what makes sense for you and what you want to try. I will say definitely explore different ways of following through, of committing, of saying yes, and then also saying no. I would like, I've been working on this thing about like being more intentional about my words, and what I'm committing to. And I'm coming to realize that it's okay to say yes, but if I realize that I said yes prematurely, I can take it back. I can say I messed up. And say, you know, and apologize, and knowing that it's coming from a real authentic place. And if they can't accept that, and if they can't support you in that, then I think it says a lot about like their intentions and like where they're coming from, and it may also put into question if you want to continue doing work with them, because in the end, like, we're not computers, we're people, and we all make mistakes, and this is a learning process. And that's why I do really appreciate the food movement in Minnesota, is that we've been doing a lot of testing and trying things out and being willing to do things differently, because we're realizing that our communities are shifted in many different ways, and that what was happening before is no longer serving the needs of our communities and the communities that are coming. And so, yeah, I would say being willing to know yourself and be more aware of yourself and what you're able to do and what you want to do, and being able to say, I would like to take on this task because it will give me the opportunity to practice this skill for future situations.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so good to, you know, like challenge yourself and try things that you haven't done, but knowing when it is too much to do and you can't commit anymore. And I feel like even saying like, oh, I can't commit anymore, it sounds so negative, and there's such a negative stigma to that it's like, oh, they can't commit, you know. But it's like, you know, like the one thing I do like about this work is everyone is, I mean, I don't like this part, everyone's like overworked and has a lot to do, but because of that, everyone also has an understanding of what it is like to have to do all these things without the resources, the support, and all of that. So, I mean, it's a live and learn, practice, and
Yep. Okay, so we've made popcorn. Oh, let me see that. Oh.
And none of it's burnt.
Hey!
It's amazing.
Okay.
Simple.
Got a little bit more salt, but yeah. How's it been? If you add coconut oil, it just adds a little bit more like, I don't know, what does it add? It just
like, well, I mean, it has that hint of coconut, like very light.
It just, yeah, it just like makes it all better.
Sometimes.
Okay, so we try to wrap up this video, but follow through.
So,
What are the top 3 things that you like to work on when it comes to your follow through? Or what's a powerful question? Oh, I like this better. What's a powerful question that you have that you can leave with us to think about as we follow through, and like how we can improve, or how can we change, or how can we think about things differently?
Yeah.
So you create a question, a powerful question. I'll do a powerful question, and we can think about this for the rest of our day.
Yeah. I think for me, I was like thinking about this today. Like, for me, I'm a pretty introverted person, and so a lot of times it takes a lot of energy for me to like get out there and do all of these things. And but then even yesterday I was supposed to have a meeting, and I'm like, oh, it's like I'm tired, I'm exhausted. Why do I do this? Like, but to me, it's just like, but I just have to remember, how does it make me feel after I'm done? And so I was like, I just have to go, because I know it's so hard to go there. At first, it takes a lot of energy, but once it's done, it feels like I feel very energized to connect with people, to be brainstorming, to be doing all of these, like this really important work. And that's the same, like lobbying. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But I show up and I make sure I go, and then afterwards I'm like, how did this make me feel? And so that's my question. How does it make you feel?
I love that.
What's your question?
My question, as I drink my cup of tea. What my question is, why am I committing? Why am I saying yes to this? Am I saying yes to this because I feel obligated? Because no one else is stepping up? Am I saying yes because people are expecting me to? Am I saying yes because I actually have the time and resources to commit? Am I saying yes because I'm doing this to work on skills? Am I doing this because this is going to challenge me? And so my question is, when you're thinking about following through, when you're committing, ask yourself, why are you committing? And then also on the flip side, why are you not committing? Is this opportunity for you to commit because you are so used to saying no and not putting yourself in a situation to expand and grow and love yourself, or
you feel vulnerable,
or feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
So my powerful question is, why are you choosing to commit? And then and on the flip side, why are you not choosing to commit when it comes to following through or for that particular action?
Yeah, I'm going to be a lot of thinking to do.
A lot of thinking. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening.
Yes.
I hope that you enjoyed our snack time with tea.
Unicorn tea.
Unicorn tea.
Unicorn tea.
Peace.